Welcome to the Daily Influence, where our mission is to deliver a daily dose of positive influence that can uplift you personally or be shared within your sphere of influence. While not every episode may directly apply to your unique circumstances, we strive to provide insights and inspiration relevant to most people's daily, weekly, and monthly lives. Whether you are tuning in during the morning, noon, or night, the Daily Influence is here for you. Listen, share, and embrace the power of influence in your life.
Welcome to Daily Influence. I'm Gregg-Brooke Koleno. Whether you're a new or longtime listener, we're so glad you're here. The Daily Influence is your daily dose of insight, inspiration, and actionable wisdom to fuel your day with positivity. Today, I'm excited to introduce Debra Duby, a powerhouse in the world of personal and professional transformation. Debra's work centers around empowering individuals to push past their limits, develop resilience, and cultivate a strong mindset for success. Her dedication to positive influence and personal growth aligns perfectly with the I In Team series, making her an inspiring guest for today's conversation. Debra, welcome to Daily Influence.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Well, we're excited, and I can't wait to dive into your journey and the impact you're making. Could you share a bit about your background and what led you to where you are today?
I surely can. My background is maybe like many of your guests. It started out in a different way and then kind of transformed into where we are now. But just to give you a couple of little facts, I went to the University of Connecticut. I studied psychology, and I actually was in a corporate career for 5 years in technology. So nothing to do with what I'm doing now. But I loved psychology. I loved the people part of even the tech field of interviewing people and kind of finding out more about them and what jobs and cultures would suit them best. I just didn't like the job. And so I left in my 20s, sort of, unclear about my next steps. And it dawned on me through several conversations with others that personal training, odd as that is, because you don't need a degree to be a personal trainer, and working with people in the field of health might make sense to me, and surely it did. So I'm turning 50. I've been doing this work for 23 years, and it's kind of a surprise to me that I'm still in this field, but I love it to the same degree, if not more, than I did when I started. I think it's been a really nice way to infuse both the technical piece of exercise and nutrition, which I do now as well, and meditation, with psychology, which is really like how it all began. I think most of what I've come to realize in this career is that you can teach the technical piece quite easily. And I think lots of personal trainers think like that's where it ends, but really that's probably the easiest piece of our job. It's really a much deeper psychological journey for people to create lasting change.
Yeah, that makes sense. In your work, you help people push past their limits. Can you share a moment where you saw someone truly transform because of your guidance?
I can. I mean, there's so many people in all of these years. I could think of a couple of people right off the top. I mean, it's neat to be in this field this long because you can start with someone who's like when I was in my 20s, they were in their 60s, never lifted weight before. And now I'm still working with them. They're in their late 80s and are still totally independent, able to play sports and walk without any assistance. So, I mean, that's really neat just to know that, oh, wow, this really does work, and it works no matter where you are and no matter how you start. In that particular person that I'm thinking of, and I have several people in that category, again, didn't know a thing about strength training, started in their 65 plus years of age and continued all these years later with really wonderful results. So there are multiple people that I'm thinking of that fit into that. But I guess there's one other, I think, neat story recently. I worked with a woman who was really into cycling and an app that she was using. And when we started, I think she realized quickly, oh gosh, like I've never really lifted anything over 8 pounds. And everything was very hard for her. And she had a lot of different aches and pains. And I would say within, it took us like at least 6 months, but she went from being a person who really felt like everything hurt, specifically her back, to now we're, let's say 3 years later, doing everything, deadlifts and barbell squats and pull-ups. And it's kind of neat to be able to bring someone out of one place and into a totally different place within a reasonable amount of time.
That's amazing. What a great story. I can't even imagine going from that kind of a pain with back, which I totally understand because I've had back pain myself, into being able to actually do deadlifts. So that's amazing. In the I in Team series, we emphasize responsible influence. How do you ensure that the influence you have on others is both positive and lasting?
I think there's a few things that are really key that I do. I don't know if all trainers do. One of the things that I start my clients doing really week one is understanding how to create their own training programs and training on their own. So I have like a formula that is not necessarily unique to me on how one should cultivate, create, and develop a program, not just like for week one, but for, let's say, a month. And I also really make sure that my client knows what they need for their body so that they're not just knowing like A goes here and B goes here and C goes here, but what do I need? And so 2 big things that I think are really key are that they understand, like, what do I need for my body? How do I need to put those in an order that makes the most sense? How do I progress that? And how do I start doing it without Deb? I always say, if I make myself obsolete, I've done a really good job. So the most important thing that I think to make sure my clients continue is that they are competent without me, even though they love having me there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Many people struggle with self-doubt or feeling stuck when trying to improve themselves. What's your advice for someone who wants to break through but doesn't know where to start?
I feel like that's something that I work with and maybe, dare I say, specialize in. So like stuck, don't know where to start, kind of like nothing's working. That's kind of my specialty. So one thing that I do, or so advice that I give, and I'll say one thing that I do, I think it's really important for people in my field to listen as empathetically and open-hearted as we can, because people's obstacles are usually not what we think they are, even based on their like intake form. In speaking with someone, you really kind of understand, okay, what's the real issue? Is it fear? Is it lack of clarity? Is it fatigue? Is it time management? So really like truly understanding what the main obstacle or obstacles are is truly helpful. But then I think for some people, it's, there are a few things, but I would say the most important are lowering the bar, which is a really funny concept. But people, I think, tend to believe that they need to do all the things at once and it needs to be really hard. And therefore, it gets so complicated in their mind that they get paralyzed. It doesn't need to be complicated. And we can kind of find a way to make it so simple that it's completely impossible to fail. And also, I think a really big key is expecting that there's going to be some friction and that friction isn't a red flag. It's actually a green flag. You need the friction to change. If it's easy, you're not doing anything that's going to matter, and you're not going to do anything that's going to create the change that you want. So expecting there's going to be friction, that when you feel it, that's a green flag. And also we have to make it, match the obstacles that are specific to that person, not the obstacles that I think that they have, and make the bar, start with the bar low enough that it's sort of like even the person's like, I definitely can do that. And then you build from there.
That's great advice. You've had an incredible journey of growth and impact. What habits or practices have been key in keeping you focused, motivated, and aligned with your purpose?
I love to learn. I think many people, maybe in my field, feel that way, but I also can see that being in any health field can be overwhelming because there's no end. I love that there's no end because there's just infinite growth. There's infinite paths and avenues to go down. So one thing that I challenge myself to do is I take many classes every single year, some of which are helpful because we need to do that to kind of get our continuing education credits. So that's nice because you do that and you get to learn. But then I also do my own learning. So I finished a 2-year international teacher training program for meditation over the last 2 years. I really wanted to understand meditation, practice it enough so that I could feel that I would be an effective teacher. So that was something I did on my own, no continuing education credits, unfortunately. Something else that I do want to keep doing is I do want to go back to school to get a master's in social work. But along the way, I think it's really important to keep your brain excited and lit up. And for me, at least, just putting myself in uncomfortable situations where I have to learn new things and I'm intimidated is really important to keep me excited about my field.
That is very great information. What message or words of encouragement would you like to share with our listeners who aspire to make a positive difference in the world?
In the world? Okay. I would say, in the entire world, making a positive difference. I think that's such a big, broad question. I think anyone is capable of doing that. And I don't think that you have to be famous or have a platform in order to do that. I think it's as simple as you embodying the change that they always say, like, be the change that you want to see in the world, right? This famous quote. That's the way to really inspire others, is just to walk your talk and just be the change that you want to see. I think when people feel that energy from you, that's inspiring, and you don't have to say a word. You don't have to give any instruction. You don't have to announce anything, teach anything. You don't have to get people to get involved in anything. You just have to be who you are. And I think if you're passionate about what it is that you're doing and how you're operating in the world, people feel that. And I think that in and of itself can make a huge impact.
That's so true. Thank you for sharing that. Debra, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
I would say, I would love to hear from anyone in any way that's comfortable for you. But I am on Instagram. That's a pretty easy way, to find me. It's my name, Debra Duby, and there's a hyphen or an underscore, I think, between my first name and my last name. You can also find me on my website, debraduby.com. I'd be happy to talk. And I think it's important to know that I didn't get to talk to you about this in this quick interview, but I don't come from a family with fitness in the background. My mom struggled with obesity and became paralyzed with a really crazy disease suddenly when she was 60, and unfortunately passed away from a myriad of health conditions a few years ago. I understand what it's like to struggle with so many illnesses and also so many obstacles. And I think that one thing I would just say to people is don't feel intimidated to reach out because of a perception that you might have of any trainer or any nutritionist, including myself. We really don't know where people come from and what their backgrounds are and what their stories are. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about mine. My mom was a big inspiration for me. And I think, gave me a lot of the tools that I have today because of her life.
Debra, thank you for sharing that. I'm so grateful you're here with us today. We'll put your contact information in the show notes. So if our listeners want to get in touch with you, they could do so. Debra, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Daily Influence. I hope today's conversation brought you insight and inspiration. If it spoke to you, share it with someone who could use a little positivity today. Remember, small actions create big impact. Keep showing up, leading, and growing one day at a time. Until next time, stay inspired and have a positive, responsible influence. Bye-bye.